Hi everybody, my name is Bhavishya and in this lecture we will learn about areas. Right. So this is the very classic example of what we see in OSPF. This is the most fundamental area known as Area 0, aka backbone area, and any other area which is non which is not area 0 or which is not backbone area is known as non-backbone area. Right. Now, here we will understand two concepts. The very first that we already know is that LSA is being generated per network. Right. This is what we saw in the previous one. The one we already know is, which is important in this lecture, is LSA is being generated per area. Right. This is the very first concept. The second is the scope of any LSA resides within the area, right? So we will act upon these two concepts. So if I want to give an example of the existing by this existing topology, so the scope of this R1's LSA is going to be within the area only. So R1's LSA will be received by R1 itself, R2 and R3, right? And how many router LSAs will be there in this topology? Three router LSAs generated by R1, R2 and R3. Right? Yes. Now let me just modify this topology where I will give area 0 and area 1. Okay. Now we have two areas in this topology. Now let me revise of what we have learned, the two concepts. The very first is the scope of the LSA will always be within the area, right? The second concept. The second concept is LSA is being generated per area, right? Yes. So before understanding this, let's understand of how we will configure these different areas. So what we'll do is we'll go to routing configuration mode. Let's suppose we are configuring for R2. So I'll go to routing configuration mode and then we'll give the network. We'll give this command network. First we'll configure for this particular interface. Not exactly interface, but we give it throughout. So for this particular one, area 0, I'll say network 12.0.0.0. After that, I'll give inverse mask, that is 0.0.0.0.255. After that, I'll give the area, which is area 0. Either I can do it by this way or by this way only, 0.0.0.0. Right? Yes. After that, I will give network 23.0.0.0 along with the inverse mask 0.0.0.0.255. After that, I'll give the area, which is area 1 or 0.0.0.1. Right? Yes. So this is how I'll give the configuration. After that, as you can see, the situation of R2 where simultaneously under it is under two areas, right? So this phenomena or this particular type of router is known as ABR, and ABR stands for area border router, which is sharing two borders right now, right? Yes. So When R1 will generate in LSA, it will be only in this area 0. So in the database, only R1 will have its own LSA and R2 will have R1's LSA, right? But not R3. Similarly, when R3 will generate in LSA, only R3 and R2 is going to have that LSA in their LSDB, but not R1. Now the question is, when R2 will generate in LSA, who's going to receive it and who's not? So R2 is going to generate two LSAs. R2's LSA for area 0, right? And the second one is R2's LSA for area 1. Now, okay, let me drag it here. This is what R2 has generated. Now, this one, this particular router, this particular LSA that R2 has generated for area 0 is going to be under this area 0 only, right? So only R1 and R2 is going to have this particular LSA generated for area 0. And this particular LSA which R2 has generated for area 1 is going to be under this particular area only, and R3, R2 is going to have this LSA. Right. Now there is an interesting question which is, how many total router LSA will R2 have in overall topology? And the answer is 4. Okay, let's understand. So, how 4? Because we are talking about router LSA, right? So, first R2 will have, for this particular area of R1's LSA and its own LSA generated for area 0. So this is 2 LSA, right? Now, if you look at here for network 23.0.0.0, R2 will have its own LSA generated for area 0 and it will also receive R3's LSA. So all total 4 LSA. Of which type? Type 1 router LSA. Now, what is the scenario of R2? What is the scenario of R1? R1 will generate 2 router LSA. And what about R3? As similar to R1. R2 will generate 2. R2 will have all total 2 router LSA. One of its own and the second one is of router 2 generated for area 1. So this was it for this lecture. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.